I have been doing more political content on YouTube recently, and I finally found a topic that everyone in America can agree on. For the last 20 years, our mission in Afghanistan has been a complete and utter disaster. I'm not sure if you know this, but I did 2 tours in Afghanistan, so this foreign policy error makes me particularly angry and emotional, and I feel a deep responsibility to share my thoughts, the history on what happened, and the lessons to be learned from it. In the 80s, the Russians tried to occupy Afghanistan for strategic geopolitical reasons. This was not an easy task because the Afghans didn't want them there. Since this was the Cold War, the American government saw this as a great opportunity to turn this conflict into a proxy war against the Russians by funding the Afghan army secretly. This was not made public until decades later, but it was well documented in a book and a movie called Charlie Wilson's War. We dragged the Russians through years of spending and dead troops until they finally bailed on this mission, and they left Afghanistan, and we promptly bailed too. This created a vacuum of power in the region, and chaos moved in, which is what always happens, and some Afghans were highly resentful of the United States and their irresponsible foreign policies. Afghanistan isn't the only time, obviously, that we've meddled in the Middle East, and over that time, a guy named Osama bin Laden decided to declare 2 fatwas against us, basically statements that said we broke their religious law of Islam by continuously invading their land, and he declared war on us. In 1998, he bombed a US embassy in Tanzania, and in 2001, he sent 2 planes into the World Trade Center, as you well know. Angry about this event and learning absolutely nothing from history, we decided to enact a live war in Afghanistan.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations and to attack the military capability of the Taliban regime. Thanks to our military and our allies and the brave fighters of Afghanistan, the Taliban regime is coming to an end.
And for the last 20 years, we did what the Russians did before us. We spent money and manpower in a place that did not want us. And now that we are leaving, I guarantee you there are people who will feel betrayed by our exit, angry of our continued arrogant intervention into their land and culture, and I worry that this will breed another American-hating insurgent that very well might start the whole cycle over again. To this day, if you start polling your social circles about why we went to Afghanistan, you're gonna get different answers. Response to 9/11. We went there to get bin Laden. We went there to get oil. But the fact that we collectively don't have a great singular answer to this question disturbs me greatly. All I really know is that it was easy to enact this policy because the American populace is so bloodthirsty they will agree to anything that involves showing the world how mighty we are. People were mad about the 9/11 attack, and while rightfully so, I was too, the government used the actions of this one guy and 20 Saudi Arabians to justify invading a country of largely innocent people on the basis that we're going to fight terrorists. We went there for imperialism. That's what happened. Maybe you call it colonialism or nation building, depending on how politically correct you are, but regardless of what you call it, it didn't work, and we seem to have learned nothing from it. Again. In the meantime, we never gave as much as a stern look to Saudi Arabia over the event, and we killed bin Laden in May of 2011, just over 10 years ago, and we're just now leaving. We didn't get any oil, so tell me, what was the point of being there? For years I've said this was George Bush's fault, and it mostly is. But really, it's the American public's fault. We voted for these incompetent representatives who did this. They all voted for it at the time. We let the media spin us up into a war frenzy, and then we happily sent our children to this pointless war, telling them that it was an honorable thing. And now we are here fighting each other again about whose fault the exit is. The government didn't do any of those things. We did them to ourselves. This is our fault. And if we aren't careful, we're going to do it to ourselves again. And that's the problem with blame. It's an immature emotion that doesn't allow us to recognize how we can change our behavior. Rather than sit in the comfort of our own homes and shouting whose fault it is, we should take some self-responsibility. I see people blaming Trump. I see people blaming Biden. But as far as I can tell, those are the only 2 presidents who actually put the end of the war into motion. So if you're blaming one side or the other right now, my personal opinion is that you're being used as a pawn by the media to fight your fellow Americans so that they can get clicks. It helps nothing, and it makes you look like a sucker. Please stop. This is not new for me. I have been a severe critic of this foreign policy nightmare for over a decade now. This is not a new frustration of mine, and people who know me have heard my rants before, but since it's in the news cycle, since the war has finally ended, people have been asking me about it. And they ask, Alex, why are you so mad? Which is actually astounding to me, because I think the appropriate question is, why aren't you more mad? 71,000 Afghan civilians dead. Almost 3,000 American military dead. 20,000 American military wounded. Tens of thousands in Afghan national military dead. And what did we get in exchange for this bloodshed? Debt. $2 trillion in debt. Plus decades of future interest payments. Some estimates show that by the time this thing is paid off, it'll be over $6 trillion. We also got Guantanamo Bay, an extremely anti-constitutional apparatus that allows us to hold captives with no charges and no trials. And the TSA, the most invasive government organization to date yet. It is utterly insane to me that people think masks are a government overreach, but they have no problem when they get their personal belongings and their bodies searched and scanned every time they go to an airport. All for an organization that Department of Homeland Security admits fails at 95% of the time at preventing weapons and explosive materials from being smuggled on planes. Disgusting. For those of you watching the headlines of Kabul falling this week, does it make you mad? Good. It makes me mad as fuck. I'm boiling mad. I've been mad for 15 years, and it's only recently that I realized that never before in human history has a guy like me had the power to put my face on camera and disseminate this type of critique about his government for everyone to see. So I'm using my anger, my personal experience, and this platform to create a plea to people to prevent future unnecessary bloodshed, and I will tell you how this can be done, potentially. Vietnam and Afghanistan. I see lots of people comparing Vietnam and Afghanistan, and I'll tell you what, they are similar. I also heard that the fall of Kabul being compared to the fall of Saigon. And this one is hard for me to grip because I wasn't alive for the fall of Saigon. But I know that today you can go visit Saigon and have a great time because it's tourist friendly and it's lovely. So if the end of Kabul is like the end of Saigon, then I say great. Let Afghanistan make its own way and just maybe they will flourish. Clearly, Russian and American interference has not helped them, and it's obviously done extreme damage to us. Both Afghanistan and Vietnam were pointless wars that took decades to undo, and we gained nothing from either of them. So the next time your leaders want you to support a war, tell them to get fucked. Lesson 1, don't be a warmonger. The headlines of Kabul falling to the Taliban are admittedly sickening. I was there in Kabul. But after 20 years, if the capital fell within a week, then another 10 years obviously wasn't going to help, which only proves there's no end game here. We needed to leave. Ending the war in Afghanistan was a campaign piece for the last 3 presidents, and we finally did it. And instantly, I see people forgetting all that and wanting to send troops back out of, I don't know, the news. This is pure manipulation of our public, which means lesson 2 is don't get baited by the media. And the scariest part going forward is that I think that ending this war opens us up to be a sold and new war, one that we are well primed to buy. Our citizens are polarized like never before, and a common enemy to unite us is just what might be the easy band-aid to distract us from how much we disagree. Right now, the correct posture is to be extremely vigilant against the potential outbreak of a new war. The political spin will be efficient and easy to buy into, but we must resist. We must learn from our failed war in Vietnam and the 40 years of failed wars in Afghanistan. The governments take control of you by giving you enemies. Do not let them. I believe that I have made it clear that I do not agree with this foreign policy in Afghanistan, but I would like to express my utmost gratitude to the sacrifices that American and Afghani soldiers have made over the past 2 decades. I have many veteran brothers who have wasted years, precious years, of their time in that desert and away from their families for this bullshit. And many of them sacrificed a lot more than time. And I make this plea on behalf of them and future soldiers. The soldiers involved in this war did what they were told to, and they followed orders, and they suffered for it. They are largely misunderstood back home. It's hard to relate to people who weren't part of it. And then you have to hear every fake virtue signaling, thank you for your service, comment from everyone who wants to feel good about themselves having done nothing. I'm happy this war is over. Very happy, even as imperfectly as it has ended. and I'm thankful for the troops that we get to bring home. Okay, I am done ranting. I would love to read your thoughts about this topic in the chat below. I also know that I bounce between this kind of intense content and my fun real estate vlogs, and I would love for you to tell me which one you love better. Thank you. If you are not subscribed to my channel, I can only assume you hate America. Fuck George Bush. See you for the next one.